Okay.
Everybody, you can see my screen okay, Esteban?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, good. I promise everybody during the presentation, I won't be reaching through your screen like that. Hey, Phil. I see you just muted.
Hey, Bill.
Well, Esteban, if you want to just kind of let everybody know what's going on, and then we can get started, and I'll let Phil do a little bit of an intro if you'd like, Phil, and then we can go into some of the presentation.
Absolutely.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for attending us in this webinar. We have the pleasure of having Bill Bukovich and Phil Shannon from Legal Shield doing this presentation. So, Phil, you have the floor.
Thanks, Esteban, and thanks, CSFA. We really feel strongly about our relationship with the CSFA. It's one of our longest relationship with associations. Bill and I do a lot of work with associations, and we feel very privileged and proud to be able to represent the CSFA in the small way that we do. We also take a lot of value in being able to offer really important services to our firefighters and to friends of firefighters. So we're excited to be able to do that. This is one in a series. We're going to be doing these the last Tuesday of the month, different topics. I think next time we're talking about our gun owners legal plan supplement, talking about folks who have a CCW. So we'll talk about that towards the end. But today we're talking about identity theft. And I'm not going to take away any of Bill's thunder as he starts some of the presentation, but identity theft is a huge, huge issue. Most people understand that. Most people don't understand what it is. And that's what Bill's going to do. He's not only going to explain what identity theft is, he's going to explain how people get it, and he's explain what you can do to protect yourself or mitigate the risk. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you a gentleman who's been with Legal Shield for over 20 years, been one of the top producers in the company for many, many years, and been one of our featured speakers across the country. So please, if you have notes, questions, we want to make sure you get those questions answered. But it's again, my privilege to turn it over to Mr. Bill Bukovich.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate it. Yeah, make sure if you got notepads and a pen, break them out, because we're going to be giving out some helpful tips. It's things I think you can use and really help you out. And thank you, Phil. Phil has been with Legal Shield for quite a long time, over 3 decades. We're both identity theft risk management specialists, and we have seen this happen so many times. And really, it is about protecting families, finances, and your future. Identity theft isn't just financial, and we're going to get into that. We're going to start with some facts. I know the facts and the boring stuff first, but we're going to kind of get into that and what is there. There were over 16 million victims of identity theft last year. That means over 43,000 per day. Yes, a portion of them were financial, but there were a lot of other cases that weren't financial when it comes to identity theft. Just a tremendous amount of things that go on that is different types of identity theft, character criminal, DMV, and we're going to go into some of that. Matter of fact, the Federal Trade Commission has flat out stated that it's been a top consumer complaint for 17 consecutive years in America. So it's an issue that's not going away. It is getting worse, and more is happening. They're coming out with new types of identity theft. The revenue from trafficking financial data has surpassed that of drug trafficking. One reason is in identity theft case, there's only a 5% chance of conviction. So if somebody is going to do a crime and they have a 95% chance of not being convicted, that's the one they're going to go with. I mean, you rob a bank, you got about a 95% chance you're probably going to get caught. If you're dealing drugs, it's only a matter of time before they're going to catch up to you. Something's going to happen. But that isn't the case with identity theft. And on these next two, I'm going to let Phil step into a little bit, because there are some topics up here and some facts and figures I know he's really studied on and looked at. So I'm going to let Phil go over some of these. You're muted, Phil.
Very simply, identity theft is a huge issue. And this is the reason why all the breaches that have happened And we're talking about since 2005. But most people don't realize that these breaches cause a lot of issues. Everyone is familiar with some of the bigger ones. There was obviously Target. Before that, there was Anthem Blue Cross. Before that, there was Marriott. Many of you know that just recently Sprouts, which is actually my buddy is one of the bigwigs with Sprouts, they got a letter from supposedly their CEO to the HR department asking for all the W-2 data that they needed for all the employees. Well, to make a long story short, it wasn't the CEO. So every single person there, for those living in California, all the UCs have been victims of a data breach. So that means people are taking really bad care of your information, and that's costing you, because no matter how good you are at shredding or closing things or changing passwords or all that stuff, it doesn't really matter. As you can see, 2.5 million dead people open up bank accounts. So crazy stuff is going on. Identity thieves have become very, very good at what they do. As Bill mentioned, the revenue from drug trafficking actually surpassed drug traffic. The revenue from trafficking financial data surpassed drug trafficking. And this was back in 2009, according to the FBI. And unfortunately, children have become the biggest victims of identity theft. I was doing a presentation, I believe it was Sacramento or one of my police departments. And as I was doing my presentation, one of the officers raised his hand and said, "My 5-year-old son owns 2 American Express cards and has a house foreclosed on." And that's the reality of the situation. Because think about it, guys, when do we check our kids' information? We flat just don't check our kids' information. So if you don't check your kids' information, you have a situation where when you do, you find out a lot of strange things have happened. So these are some of the statistics I don't need to read to you, but I think people realize that identity theft is not going away. Identity theft is something you need to be aware of. I think that is the reason that LifeLock, for example, spends millions of dollars in commercials, and we'll talk a little bit about what distinguishes what the CSFA has made available to you, okay? If you'll go to the next slide, unless there's something in there I'm missing. Oh, the average dollar cost. This is pretty incredible. What does identity theft do to you? Well, very simply, you can see the average dollar amount charged for identity theft is over $92,000. And this is the big one. This is the really, really big one. The average time taken by a victim to restore their identity is 607 hours. That means you have to do all of that. And we're going to explain to you a better way to get that done where you don't have to do all the work. You don't have to do 600 hours worth of work. And again, Bill mentioned that most identity theft issues are non-credit related. In fact, I think the last numbers I had heard were less than 20% of identity theft deals with your financial concerns and situations. So it's all the other stuff that is the big problem.
Absolutely. It isn't how you keep your information. Understand that, because you're probably pretty studious on how you keep it. It's how other people don't keep your information safe. I mean, when you look at Anthem Blue Cross, the people that had Anthem, they didn't do anything wrong. Those 18,500 people, they just had Anthem Blue Cross. Equifax affected almost 1 in 2 people in America. And well over 90% of those people never dealt with Equifax. What simply happened was they're an aggregator of information. That's how they got that information. So there are some current things out here, and now we've kind of gone over the facts, how bad is it? And we just touched on it because we didn't want to give you 30 minutes of boring facts. So we want to talk about some of the ways people get your information. These are things you want to pass on to your teenagers, your spouses, so they understand. And hopefully, if you have spouses that are there watching it also. Phishing and farming scams. I know people that are very, very alert to watching for these things and still fall for it. Matter of fact, Las Vegas Fire and Rescue, the one of the captains there, retired president of the association, moved back home, called me 2 months after he moved back, and he said, "Bill," he goes, "first of all, I can't believe that there's no way my wife would normally fall for this. There's no way at all. She's always on top of it, but she just happened to call the Apple store that day, and we got one of those Apple phishing scams that afternoon, and she gave him the information. So he just wanted to make sure he had the current app, everything was good, what he should do. But it can happen to anybody. And if we think that, no, I'm good, I won't fall for it, that's the time we usually do. You guys know, you're firefighters, and you know that overconfidence is probably the worst enemy. The other thing is skimming. Over at Monterey firefighters, they had a thing going on in Monterey one time where the criminals would put, it's almost like a plastic housing over the credit card, the slide mechanism, and they have what's called a skimmer right inside. Your credit card will still go in and work with the pump. Everything works fine, but it skims that card number on the way in. And then usually either somewhere on the pump, or they'll have a little brochure rack with a little camera, and they can see the PIN number that's put in, and they can skim credit card information. I don't know if anybody knew this, but just a little tip: if you have one of those old things, do you remember those? They called them VCRs. You could actually take the case off of one of those, turn it on play, and you could actually swipe the magnetic strip of your credit card back and forth across the head, and it'll play on your TV screen, because that's what the head is. It reads a magnetic tape. It reads a magnetic reader. Another one is caller ID spoofing. Spoof card is one of the most popular ones. They will advertise saying, well, we're helping you protect your identity so you can disguise it as others, but using spoof card credits. And unfortunately, this happens to seniors. So if you have parents and they're victims of the information age, they didn't grow up around all this, they can actually put in the local Social Security office phone number, call them up, and it'll come up as such and such Social Security office. And they'll say, we wanted to notify you that there has been a problem with your information, and your benefits have been stopped. I need to verify some personal information with you so we can get that started again. Well, even if the elderly people are thinking and say, well, I'm not giving that to you over the phone, they say, I completely understand, not a problem at all. What you'll do is go on the website, go ahead and file this form, and they've looked it up, and you can go ahead and send that in, and they'll get your benefits started up in about 8 to 12 weeks. Well, most of them are living paycheck to paycheck, or Social Security check, Social Security check. They can't go without that for 8 or 12 weeks. So they end up giving them the information. They prey on the elderly, and it's absolutely horrible. So just because it says it's from a specific area, don't believe it. One helpful tip: always have something to do. You know what? I'm in the middle of this. Let me take down your name and number, what branch you're out of, and I'll give you a call back in about 15 minutes. Usually at that time, you're just going to hear a click and they just hang up, And then, of course, data breaches. We just went over all that information with the data breaches and what can happen. And it's how other people lose your information. Well, you remember when I said earlier to get a pen and paper out? We want to give you some good tips, everybody. We're going to go into some of these. Phil, why don't you go ahead and do the first two, and then we'll just kind of bounce back and forth, if you would, and then we'll go into these and give them some good tips on some of these.
Happy to do that. As mentioned, very brief.
Looks like you're freezing up, Phil.
How's that?
A little better. It was kind of tinny.
Okay.
Nope, you're out again.
Okay.
Nope, it's ringing. I'll go ahead and go through it. I apologize for that. It's probably a bad connection there, but the key thing is with a shredder is shred everything that could have any personal information. Don't use a straight paper shredder. Get a crosscut shredder. And if people are wondering, what's a crosscut? It's the one that makes confetti. Turn it into confetti, get rid of it. Now, I live up in Tahoe, and those bags of confetti are great for fire starter in the winter. So after I shred it, I burn it, and then, of course, once it's turned to ash and all that and mixed up with all the other ash, it goes out. But even if it's shredded real good, you're fine getting rid of it then. Put it in your recycle. What's on the back of your credit cards can hurt you. Your signature and information is there, plus that magnetic strip I talked about. My credit cards, I always put check ID. That's what I write on there. I want you to look at my ID. And it's amazing how many times I've pointed that out to people and said, doesn't it say check ID? And they go, oh, we don't worry about that here. Well, you should be, especially when I'm saying to do it. And another one is how to use your ATM card safely. When you're at pumps and stuff like that, use it as a credit card. Because if you use it as a credit card and it gets compromised, you have 60 days to dispute it before it's completely on you. If it's used as an ATM, I believe it's 72 hours that you have to find an error in there. Otherwise, it could be put on you. And another one, I was just talking with Esteban about this earlier. If anybody knows how to hit the reactions on theirs, if you haven't changed the password, your ATM password or any of those 4-digit passwords in the past 3 or 4 years, raise your hand. Hit raise your hand. Anybody? Oh, come on. I know some haven't. All right. Well, I was talking to Esteban. Hopefully it's okay if I say this, Esteban. But I asked him, I said, have you changed it recently? He goes, not since I opened the account. And the biggest thing is, if I go change it all the time, I'm never going to remember it. You want to know a cool trick so you can remember it? The problem is if you pick the number, it's going to be tied to something in your life. That's just how we work. We're human. Take out a dollar bill. The last 4 numbers on that dollar bill make them your PIN number. Now, I know some of you are thinking, I'm not going to remember that. That's fine. Fold up the dollar bill, put it behind your driver's license. Now your PIN number's with you for the next year. You're not going to lose it. You always got the PIN number there. So you won't forget your PIN number. Next year, pull out a different dollar bill. You're changing your PIN number all the time. You're always going to have a random number that has nothing to do with you. All right. And then what not to use the computer password. Come on, I'm sure you guys have all had training on this. You know that you don't use the 12341, or I've actually seen some people use password as password. Make sure you get some capitals in there, get some digits, get some numbers in there. And if you need to, get yourself a password keeper that you can have on your phone where you can keep those, but you need to be secure and safe. And another thing is when you're at a hotel, I'm looking at number 7 now, they've got free Wi-Fi and all that. The challenge is if somebody is in that hotel who's an IT person or knows what they're doing, that information that's going across the Wi-Fi is just like information flying through the air. So if that's the case, you want to go ahead and make sure you have some type of VPN installed, a virtual private network. I use Private Tunnel. Private Tunnel's I think it's $30 per year for up to 3 devices. So I have it on my laptop, I have it on my phone, I have it on my wife's phone. That way, if I do go to a hotel, I can just turn on my Private Tunnel, my VPN, connect that way and encrypts it. So that way it goes across encrypted. In addition to that, you can also just hotspot to your phone if you have unlimited data and use that. And when it comes to is your phone secure, they have systems, they have connections and software for your phone to keep it secure. Try and make sure that your phone is secure. If you have any sensitive files, most phones now, especially Androids, I can't say with Apple, I'm not an Apple user, but they have a thing called a secure folder. Keep things in your documents there in a secure folder. Bank and credit card statements, the biggest thing you're looking for there is charges that are $1 or less that you know nothing about. Because those types of charges, that's where they're testing the card to see if it's going to work. Those are of course, you're looking for the big charges where somebody buys something big, but it's the little ones that can hurt you too. Bank confidentiality letters, number 10. If you get any of those, don't just send in a reply envelope or a reply card. It's best to take it down to your local branch, talk to them personally. And then paying your bills or checks safely. Most websites now that are reputable websites that don't click on links to go to them. Go to the company or the financial institution's website and then go ahead and log in that way. But if you are still paying anything by check, don't put it in your mailbox. Because when you lift that flag to have the mailman pick it up, all you're telling the thieves is, hey, I've got something here. And a lot of times it's a check. So take it down, drop it off at the post office. And another little tip is if the last pickup is at 5 p.m., don't put it in after 5 p.m. in an outside box. So make sure you get it on the inside. In addition to that, what's in your wallet? You've heard many times, don't carry your social security card in your wallet. I've talked to some people, especially some clients I have, And when they go through this, they will actually, some of the ladies especially will say, I've got 4 kids. How am I supposed to remember all their social security numbers? Here's another little trick. Take your cell phone. You can use their first name, say Jacob, and then just put S for the last initial if your last name starts on an S. Like for me, my son's Brandon, I'd put Brandon B. And then I could put in any area code I want. So maybe I'll pick a 917, and then I'll go ahead and put in the first 3 digits of his social, the last 4 digits of his social. I only have to remember the middle 2. I guarantee you, if an identity thief gets your phone, they're not going to go through hundreds of contacts and be able to decipher what's a real phone number and what's not. So you could actually put in all 4 children that way and only have to remember the middle 2 digits for each child. And then you've got all your kids' social security information or cards numbers. Bank check security. With that, get your checks from a reputable vendor of the bank. Beware of those things now. I'm going to show my age. Remember the TV guide ads you always used to have? It's here, order your checks, order these cool checks. You don't know where that information's going. So I would suggest you find out if you want the scenes on it, whatever, what your bank vendor offers, because they've been checked out. Can social media compromise your children? If I could get people to do a raise of hands, I would ask who has seen a birth announcement in the last 6 months. Well, if you're on social media, I bet all of you have. Do you realize when that birth announcement came out, they gave out 4 pieces of personal identifiable information on that child? They told the child's gender. They told the child's name, their date of birth, and they've also said the county or city in which they live. 4 personal identifiable pieces of information given out on that child. Child probably isn't even a month old. And monitoring services, do they work? That's a good question, because a lot of credit cards offer those. And Phil, I see you're back outside, so I think your connection's probably good. So what I want to do next is, talking about monitoring, there's some other services out there. I want Phil to touch base on those, because there's different types of services available.
I appreciate that. And when you're talking about monitoring, it's interesting because before we had this great relationship with firefighters, we actually used the analogy of a fire department. And there are companies out there that do monitoring, and monitoring is great. It tells you when you have an issue, when you have a problem, makes you aware of it. But the analogy that we've used for years is a firefighter. So you're rolling up on a fire, you see the fire going on, you see the house starting to burn down, you see embers all over the place, and you call the people who own the house and you tell them, hey, there's a fire going on in your house. And those people may be in Hawaii on vacation or maybe out to dinner. And all you do is basically tell them that they have a problem. Now, what other services do are there's things that do monitoring. And I know Bill has a great analogy. I love his analogy with an ambulance, because as some of you know, we're also endorsed supplier for the California Ambulance Association. And we've used this analogy in the past where an ambulance, you're in a bad automobile accident, you're alive and you got some injuries, you got some trouble, and the ambulance company drives by and basically throws you a first aid kit and all the information and all the things that you need to be able to take care of your issue or problem. Probably not the best way to take care of your problem. Well, that's kind of what monitoring is all about. There's reimbursement plans where they say if there's a big issue, they'll actually reimburse you. They'll give you some money for the damages that you happen. Now, the problem with that is you have to jump through a lot of hoops oftentimes. There's a lot of small print. So be very wary of reimbursement plans. There's fraud alert plans. They basically make you aware when there's some kind of fraud. Typically, it's about banks or financial institutions when you talk about fraud alert plans. And as we've mentioned a few times, and I'll make sure you understand, credit and banks and financial institution is one of the least important parts of identity theft. Because let me ask a question to the audience. Has anyone ever got a call from your bank or financial institution where there's a strange charge in Timbuktu? Of course, we all have. Why do they do that? Because they're financially responsible for that. So I'm not saying banks aren't good people, but they're doing it to cover their situation to cover their assets as well. So restoration plans, what restoration plans do is they actually provide a licensed private investigator or somebody who has expertise in restoring your identity back to where it was before the identity theft situation occurred, back to pre-theft status. Now, there are companies that give you a limited power of attorney. There are companies that lead you through the process. Look for companies that give you limited power of attorney, because that means they can do that on your behalf. Let me give you my best example. It's one Bill always likes to steal, so I'm going to say it before you do, Bill. So San Francisco Police Department is one of my biggest accounts. I was doing a presentation when the officers raised his hand and said, Phil, do you mind if I tell you something? I said, my pat answer with any police officer is you have a gun, you can tell any story you want. And he laughed and he said, no, you'll like it. It's a good story. So he told me about an alert that he got about 6 months ago. That's that fraud alert where we give you an alert that there's a problem. Well, in this case, and he's been alerted before, and typically those were something like he's refinanced the house, buying a car, getting a credit card, something simple. He knows it's him, and he just says, don't bother me with this. Well, this one didn't make sense to him. So he hit the little red button. He talked to our investigator. The investigator eventually asked, are you buying a car in San Diego? He said, no, I'm a cop in San Francisco and I'm on duty. So the investigator said, we're going to send you over limited power of attorney. Please sign it, scan it back to us, and we'll see what we can do. So he did just that. So in front of 17 other police officers, he told the audience right there, he said, within an hour, guys, I got a phone call from the investigator. They'd actually called the dealership, got the dealership to stall the people, and actually got law enforcement there to arrest them before they go. Now, that's obviously the perfect storm. It doesn't happen that way every time, but that's the point in regard to having a company where you have limited POA. So you can go on with your life and do the important things that you want to do. Back to you, Bill.
Thank you. And I do want to tag on to that when it comes to the restoration. Don't confuse resolution with restoration, because there are companies out there, okay, I'm going to flat out say it, like LifeLock, they'll call themselves restoration, but they're truly a resolution. What resolution means is they don't use a power of attorney, they do it with you, not for you. When we showed this to the CSFA, and I'm going to get into what your CSFA has, and I think it's absolutely awesome. I mean, you would expect Phil and I to say it's the best identity theft protection on the market, but it's not just about us. Cybersecurity Excellence Awards named us as a gold medal award winner last year. This year already, Forbes Advisor has called us best of the 2021 for individual and family identity theft protection. We've been in Javelin, Money.com, and many, many, many others. Well, the CSFA is bringing you the best, but they're stepping up their game. They're not just bringing you the best, they're bringing it to you at about a third of the cost of other comparative services out there like LifeLock, and LifeLock doesn't even restore. We do. So just like Phil told that story, and I've used it 3 times, so I think it's mine now, but with that story, it is important because we monitor what matters. And if you want, we can monitor your social media just to help you keep aware. You may not want to post that because you could be compromising yourself. That's really good for teens. When my son was under 18, I had to have all his passwords, but I also had the monitoring set up on his social media. So if he put anything out or it came in, if it was something bad, I knew what was going on. Because as parents, we should be informed. So we've got the identity theft protection up there. And then when you go on to the CSFA site, we'll have that at the end, you'll see it's a fraction of the price of what other people charge. We monitor what matters, but we restore when you need it restored, and we do that for the whole family. The other thing is member perks discounts. Now, flat out, if you guys have our plan and you're not using this, shame on you. Because on average, the monthly savings from people who use this is in excess of $49 a month. It'll pay for your plan. If you don't have the membership through the CSFA, you can help support your CSFA, because everybody who has a membership, a portion of that goes back to the CSFA in perpetuity to help support the CSFA. And you can actually save more than your membership costs. So yeah, it would actually cost you more to get rid of the plan than to have it. And going into that, how do you get it? How do you find it? If you've been to the CSFA's website, you've seen the banner going across right there. When Legal Shield comes up, because Legal Shield and ID Shield are synonymous, we have a legal benefit. We also have an ID Shield benefit, and they go together perfectly. They work perfectly. And both of those, a portion of it goes back to the CSFA. You can go right through your CSFA website. Now, if somebody's on here, because we did put out the information, that is not a member of the CSFA, and you say, I'd like to have it too. Well, your discount won't be as good as the CSFA members. They're members of the association. They get a greater discount, but you're still going to get a discount too. You're going to get a discount off what it would cost the normal public because you're a friend of the CSFA. And you can see on the very bottom here, you can go down to legalshield.com/info/CSFA connection. You'll get a discount. You'll save money over the general public, but not as good as CSFA members do. So if you're wondering, well, how much do I save? Well, let's put it this way. If you had both the legal and identity theft protection plans, in a year, you would save more than your CSFA membership costs. So if I had to recommend it, I would honestly say become a member of the CSFA and get the greater discount, and it's going to be a win-win situation. And before we open up for questions, and we want to make sure you guys ask questions, we're happy to answer them. I wanted to see if Phil had anything he wanted to put in there. You got to get off mute though. Phil, you're on mute.
Mention a little bit about member perks, because I know we gloss over that all the time in our presentations. It sounds like you get this and then you get a Ginsu knife with your Chia pet. But this member perks, guys, is incredible. They're a company now, as a firefighter, for those who are firefighters on the call, you realize you get some discounts as a first responder, okay? This is that on steroids. I mean, there are companies like Costco, Disneyland, Great America, there's AMC theaters, there's Century Theater, if we ever go to movies again. There are literally 400 plus companies that you get discounts for. The Target discount is about 10%, for example. I mean, there are so many discounts. If you're buying anything of any substance, make sure you check the member perks. I'll give you an example. Just about 2 months ago or so, my dryer went kaput. So I got the brand, I went to a store, got the brand that I was looking for, the exact serial number, not serial number, but the number of what the item was. I went to member perks and I saved $155 from that one purchase. That's the value of these member perks. So for those of you who have the membership, if you're on the call, or those who are getting the membership, use the member perks discounts. I mean, they're simple to use. And once you get in the habit, you just make that your, if you're buying a car, buying a house, it doesn't matter. Insurance, it doesn't matter. Really great discounts through the member perks.
Absolutely. And then Phil's phone number is on there. My phone number is on there. Yes, I give out restaurant tips if you're coming to Tahoe. And if Jeff is listening in, I didn't see if he chimed in. Yes, Jeff, I am on the other side of the lake, the nice side. I'm just kidding. He's on the rich person side up at Incline. So, but Esteban, if we could open it up for everybody, in case anybody has any questions, we'd love to take the time to answer any questions, help out in any way we can.
Yes, absolutely. So everyone is freely able to unmute themselves if you do happen to have a question. All right, we have Dallas who has a question.
Yes, Dallas.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I just became a victim of identity theft last week. And is it too late to join up and utilize your services to help put me back on the road?
No, it's not too late at all, because what we're going to be able to do is help get some of that resolved. And Phil, you're going to have to help me out on this, because I know if it's a true employer-employee relationship, they cover pre-existing conditions. But I'm not sure in this relationship with the CSFA, because it's an association versus an employer-employee relationship, that pre-existing would be covered. But correct me if I'm wrong on that, Phil. And
let me help. Dallas, are you a member of the CSFA?
Yes.
Okay, great. My understanding is, as a member of the CSFA, you receive because what we do when we have groups, and the CSFA was many, many years ago, and they changed the policy a couple years ago. But my understanding is anyone that is in a group situation like the CSFA, we do cover pre-existing conditions. So regardless of they will do everything that they would do previously. Now, if for any reason that's not correct, and we can check that out if you'd like, but if for any reason that is not correct, at least you'll have someone to talk to about what to do and how to do it. Because one of the things we never even talk about during that presentation is you have unlimited access during normal business hours to licensed private investigators to understand what you need to do, what you might want to do, how you can protect yourself, just in regard to questions. So in regard to pre-existing, my understanding is we are covered. CSFA members are covered for that. I can check to be absolutely sure, but Dallas, regardless, you're going to want to take advantage of the service. But we can find out the details on that if you would like us to.
I'd love that. I do plan on utilizing you from here on out.
Gotcha.
Whatever tips you can provide for going forward, that would be great.
Dallas, if you'll put your email, if your contact, your email and your phone number in the chat, if you don't mind, it's a relatively small group, so I don't think we have an identity thieves on here. If we do, it's all someone else's fault, not ours.
Well, plus you can make it addressed just to us. It doesn't have to go to the group.
That's a good point.
So either one of us, it doesn't matter. And but even if for some reason the pre-existing isn't on there, they're going to walk through with you everything you need to do. And as soon as you have recovered that from that point forward, you have all the restoration.
That would be great. My second question, as I'm going through the maze of hints and suggestions without any real details of the path to follow, it's kind of, you draw your own conclusions from the various credit reporting agencies and their tips and stuff. What's the likelihood of ever discovering how my information got out there?
Unlikely, unless you got notified by an agency or a breach. They're required to notify you. But the last thing people want to do is admit liability because of Gramm-Leach-Bliley and the red flag rules. So they don't want to necessarily put that out there any more than they have to. Their legal department tells them, just basically be as ambiguous and give the basics of what you need to. And as you know, with law enforcement, even if they found who did it, they're not allowed to tell you because of the threat of retaliation. That somebody who's a victim would go retaliate. So they're not going to tell you. And I actually had that incident happen. I was going to provide this benefit at Castro Valley CHP. And I went to the Comfort Suites there the night before. I presented the presentation to the highway patrol officers at their training day. A lot of them got the service. I leave and my wife had been making phone calls to me and she goes, "What are you buying?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "You have been buying things all night long." And I'm like, "I was asleep." We looked, and when I checked into the hotel, the card I used, the girl at the desk went shopping with my card number. So I went back to Castro Valley CHP and I said, "Okay, this is what she looked like. This is what she was wearing. This is where it was. This is the time." And he goes, "Oh, I got to go over to the sheriff's department to meet with them anyways. I think we'll take a little drive over there." So she unfortunately used the wrong card, but they couldn't give me any more information past that because, they fear that victims will retaliate.
Okay. Well, thanks for answering my questions. I really appreciate it. I'm feeling good about this here.
It's a great plan, and we're just so thankful the CSFA is offering it to their memberships. It's a great service for their members.
Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Any more questions? Oh, and Dallas, don't forget to put your email address and/or phone number in the chat to us, because that way we can get that answer to you.
Will do. Thank you.
Uh-huh. No other questions?
You guys, I need you to know that. Can you hear me okay, Bill?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back in charging my phone. I'm sorry, guys. But
You're starting to ping a little bit.
Guys, I was a school teacher for 7 years, and I always know from experience that if I finish a lecture and the kids don't have any questions, that nobody understood a word I said. So I'm starting to worry about you guys. Did we do okay? Did you get some information that's helpful? We'd appreciate the feedback.
Tell us how we did, Gary. And I don't know if you guys know, but next month, and keep in mind, this is the last Tuesday of the month, 6 p.m., we're doing gun owners legal protection. Ah, there's Gary.
Good, good presentation, guys. It was a little tinny, but maybe through my phone. I'm not sure what end it was on, but great information. I'm going to use that dollar bill tip. That's really cool.
I love that. Bill told me that about 2 weeks ago. I'd never heard it before.
Yeah.
It makes it simple because you know, a lot of people are worried, yeah, if I change it, then I'll forget it, and then I got to go through all this nightmare. Well, actually, you don't. The dollar bill, you just keep it behind your wallet, and when it's next year, when it's time, you can just spend that one and put a new one there. Sorry if I talked over you, Phil.
No, that's okay. I was going to say, I don't remember what I was going to say. I actually was going to say, one, we don't want this to ever go longer than an hour, and we're at 43 minutes, give or take. So we want to thank everybody for being in attendance. Please tell people about these. We're doing everything we can to try and help generate revenue for the CSFA. We're trying to put it on social media and things to that effect. Dallas, I appreciate you being here. And I know the main reason you're here is because of what happened just within the last few days. And it's really interesting. You know, people typically don't seek out this information until after the fact. And it's unfortunate, but it's the world we live in. We all are privy to that. When we talk about our legal plan, we're going to talk about how you need to get your will done. And we know that, you know, the American Bar Association tells us that 80 to 90% of Americans don't have a current up-to-date will. And we're going to talk about how you can get that taken care of in one of our presentations that will be coming. So we look forward to you guys being here again for our next one. Please feel free to share the news about what we do. We try and make this as painless as possible and just get you some good information. And we appreciate Gary and Monty and Eddie and Jeff and all the people with the CSFA for allowing us the opportunity to do this. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your presentation. It was very, very, very insightful. A lot of information that I'm personally going to use, especially the dollar bill idea. Then also, I never knew about the actually there's different types of identity theft plans. You know, that's something that's you learn something new every day, and this presentation was very informative, and it's a pleasure to have been on the other side of the screen for this presentation.
Appreciate that, Esther, very much.
Yeah, we appreciate that and appreciate all your help and all you're doing for the CSFA. Thank you so much. And everybody on there, we appreciate you being on there. We appreciate your support. If we can help you, please let us know. And the best help you can do is spread the word. There's probably a lot of people, CCWs, that want to be tuned in next month. Find out what's available, more protection and help coming to you even there when it comes to gun owners' rights and everything, you know, because of the CSFA protection for you.
You all have a great month. Feel free to contact us. Go on the CSFA website and get registered if the membership makes sense. But we'll call it a night here in beautiful Northern California and even more beautiful Lake Tahoe, Nevada.
Actually, I'm on the California side. Jeff's on the Nevada side.
That's right.
He's a smart one. I got to move over.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
Appreciate it. Y'all take care.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.